All right, we'll get started here momentarily. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We got a hot topic on tap here today. Purchasing a manufactured home. There's all kinds of things to consider. There's some definite pros, some definite cons, and we want you to just be familiar with what those are. We get questions on this a lot, and we've got a great guest today to kind of chat through that. He's our subject matter expert on the matter. We've got Charlie Weatherington and Keith Kellum on the call. Morning, fellas.
Hey, guys.
Good morning.
But before I do, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm your host. I'm the associate broker and team lead at My Home Connection. Both Charlie and Keith are on the team as well. We do want to just give a quick shout out to our sponsor today. It's Perfect Home Buying Process. We've developed this over the last 5-step process over the last couple of decades. We've got some great material and tools for you. We've got some offers to keep the confidence up and the costs down in the way of contributions towards your home inspection and appraisal. We've got a podcast series we want to send out that'll include things like the topic today, along with other questions that you're likely to have. We got some secrets we want to share with you, things that you should know during the home buying process. A lot of different reports to keep you up to speed on what's going on in the areas you're looking in with the schools and the market and all that. If you want to take advantage of the perfect home buying process, you can just reach out to us. Our website is just myhomeconnection.com, and you can contact us up in the top right here, in any manner, text, phone call, email, and just say perfect home buying process, and we'll look to get the process started with you. Other than that, I'll bring the panel back in, and we'll chat about the topic of the day. As you see, not only is Charlie our specialist, but we have even he's given himself a name, the Wheelman. So very very appropriate. How are you doing today, Charlie?
Doing really good, Jerod. It's good to be with you and Keith on a bright Saturday morning.
Yeah. Looks like you're having probably more fun than Keith and I would be my guess, based upon where you're at.
Yeah, I'm just blessed to be able to sit out here in the mountains this
Awesome.
weekend, enjoy a football game, and spend some time with family. So yeah,
Awesome.
I am blessed. That's for sure.
Awesome. Good morning, Keith. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm well, thanks. Yeah,
Good.
I'm not in the mountains, but it's okay. I'm not gonna let it get me down.
That's right. That's right. Well, the beauty is we're so close to the mountains here in the Treasure Valley that we can quite often make it up into the mountains and enjoy everything it has to offer. So it's pretty great state, if I do say so. But Charlie, before we get started on our conversation, you have evidence of your nickname. Can you tell us a little bit about how you branded that?
Well, it's pretty easy. I have a motto that says, "If it's on wheels, I'll do the deals." So I've spent and had a good experience with selling modulars and mobile homes, and they are their own product. They're different than your typical stick home in some ways, I'm kind of excited to talk a little bit about the pros. And also to help discuss some of the cons with that product and what it means to home buyers.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. I think it's perceived as if it's just kind of blends into the mix of which housing, buying and purchasing a home can be, certainly is the category, but manufactured homes have so many different nuances that there's definitely a lot of things to consider. And I think you'd classify it as being blessed and helping serve folks with that effort and navigating the intricacies of what's involved in that.
Yeah, for sure. And thing is that I think one of the real pluses for mobiles and modulars is their pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on a limited budget, but you really want a home, you want a place to call home, you want a place to feel safe and be able to make memories with your family, that's a product that makes it sometimes easier to get into that home buying process or to accomplish that goal. I think that's probably the big plus. And typically, I'm out here in the mountains, and sometimes it's very difficult to get something built in a very difficult or rough to reach place, but a modular mobile might be, that right answer. So quite often it makes it, even for a second home, for those folks that are, maybe looking for a getaway place during the summer or the winters, and, they want a place up in the mountains, it makes it more affordable than your typical stick home. So,
Yeah.
To me, that's I think one of the greatest draws or pluses to that.
Yeah, I think in the last couple of years, as our markets, the home values have really gone up quite a bit because of COVID. We've got a pretty major uptick in inquiries about manufactured homes, and then the questions, come about quickly thereafter. What do I think about manufactured homes? Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? So yeah, to your point, these are the pluses and minuses that we want to talk about today. But certainly the initial affordability of that product, that type of home. And I think one of the things we need to communicate right up front is there is not only the consideration of the cost of the manufactured home, but in some cases the lot lease, the rent associated to the lot. So I think that's arguably one of our biggest question is, why is that so inexpensive? We can quickly look and see if there's a lot rent associated to it, and it's to the tune of $600, $700, $800 roughly in our market these days. So that is a pretty major consideration. That's probably the number one question you get.
Yeah, and that's for sure. I do connect with a lot of people that think that they really do want to buy a mobile or a modular, and then they're surprised to find that, oh my gosh, I'm going to pay anywhere from $450 to $950 a month for lot rent, and I gain nothing from that. And so that's kind of a sticker shock for some folks, and it's not easy, for them, it's not easy to add that into their budget. So it becomes one of those, for some people, a deal breaker. But quite often a mobile is quite often on an unowned lot. So you're going to have lot rent.
So
Doesn't
Charlie,
mean that you doesn't
sorry,
mean that you
Go ahead,
doesn't
Keith. You got a question?
yeah, I just didn't. I want to interrupt him. I'm sorry.
No worries.
What's the biggest difference between the two? And either one of them can be on one of those lots that require a rent.
Yeah, so your mobile homes are built just a little different than modulars. Modulars are built to be designed to be hauled to a place, taken off of whatever's hauled it there, placed on a foundation. A mobile home quite often has its own framework, and that framework and axles and wheels stay with the product. And that's your biggest difference between mobiles and modulars. There's some really, really good modulars out there over the years. Years ago, Boise Cascade was building modulars that were, today you'd look at them, you'd have a hard time telling that they were a home on a foundation that was actually put there in two pieces. So with that, that's kind of your big differences between the two. Manufacturing quality has really gone up in both of those products as far as what's in a typical stick home. You're seeing a lot of very similar products or as durable products built into your mobiles and modulars today than in the past. So, you can find nice looking, well-built homes. A lot of your mobiles, especially the double wides, will have very open concepts, just like most stick homes do today, and have very durable flooring and wall panels. So they can be a very what I'm trying to say, equal product in a lot of ways when it comes to the construction of the homes.
So you'll find each one of those on a rented lot, or is one more predominant than the other? Is the mobile more predominant to the rental space or rent lot rent, or is it common to have a manufactured home that can't be moved, or can they be moved?
Yeah,
Just not as easily.
Modulars can be moved. Typically, you'll find modulars set on a foundation somewhere. So typically, it's a lot of times modulars are placed on owned land. Maybe you own it, and those situations where it may be difficult to get a builder to come in the mountains where you can have a modular hauled in and put on a foundation. Mobiles tend to be more your rented lots, in my experience, is what I'm seeing is, and the Treasure Valley. We're talking about Treasure Valley area. Treasure Valley has a lot of mobile home subdivisions, parks, more than you would think, and most of them, obviously, I can only think of a couple in the valley that are owned lot mobile home parks. The rest of them are typically a rented lot.
I just popped up a manufactured home on in a community that I showed over in Emmett, up in Emmett, just recently, just to give you an idea of, kind of what they look like. Price points here down to, just under 170,000.
Wow.
The lot rent on that one, as I recall, was $600 a month. Built in '97. So just to give you an idea of what you'll be looking at. So, certainly well built, spacious. Communities, well maintained. But when somebody's looking at a $170,000 home, the lot rents, the sticker, could be the stickler if you're not aware of that's going to be on top of the purchase price of the home. And then, by the way, the consideration of that is that could change. That's lot true. Rent can change. So that's our concern as representing you as a buyer of a home, that that's yet something else that could potentially, not just property taxes and kind of more your traditional single family home, but that your lot rent could go up. So we just want to take that into account.
Yeah, and certainly this is not the rule. But it's not also the exception. I've dealt with a couple folks that were downsizing from a stick home, their retirement age. They're looking to find a smaller place. They found a 55 plus community that has modulars on foundations, where they're going to end up buying the modular at a much greater or a much lesser expense than the house they're selling. That then affords them to put the remainder in an account to be able to make that monthly $450, $650, $900 a month payment, and then not have to mow a lawn, not have to do anything but be able to live there and come and go as they please. And it helps them transition financially. It makes it possible for them to still have a home, still be comfortable, frees them up a little bit. And again, that's not the rule, but it's certainly not the exception either. There's folks that I've dealt with that have gone down that path, just simply knowing that, hey, I got a $900,000 home. It's way too big for us. We want to travel a little bit. I really don't want to mow or pay for somebody to mow my lawn when I'm not home. So that they find a modular on a foundation somewhere, and the expense of those, like you said, that home you showed there, Jerod, is very similar to one I sold here recently, and it's a beautiful home.
How's the financing differ between the mobiles and the modulars, Charlie?
Now you're opening Pandora's box a little bit.
Yeah, good question, Keith. Yeah. Timely.
Yeah, and that's I wouldn't say it's a con. It's just something that buyers need to be aware of. Lending on mobile homes, particularly there's lending for mobile homes on unowned lots. There's lenders that lend specifically to the product, not to real estate. So in that case, your mobile home becomes personal property that you're buying. It's on an unowned lot where you're paying lot rent, and that lender is able to work with you to finance your personal property. Matter of fact, that mobile home comes not with a deed, but with a title. You'll actually go down to the DMV every year and renew your license for your mobile home, and you'll have a sticker display on that. So that's one type of lending. You have lending lenders that lend on mobiles and modulars on owned lots. And there's a very specific group of lenders. Your typical, how do you want to say, your typical lenders that we typically deal with, a lot of them don't deal in mobile modular lending because it's just its own animal. So and we can get into all the nuances to that, but what in my experience, it's helping your buyer understand that, hey, if you're really looking at mobiles or modulars, then I've got to show you a group of lenders that can work with you and let them find that right person to work with.
Yeah, I put up a screen here. This is Northwest Housing Services, and just as an example, so we had a podcast a couple days ago talking about what the cost considerations would be, upfront cost considerations would be of buying a home. We didn't speak to this because it is different, but if you want to see just kind of stick-built and traditional stuff, I'll put that in the description below. But as an example here for the home that we were just showing you in Emmett, Northwest, and this is, can be ever-changing, can be different for different lenders, but as an example, they'll want 5 to 10% down. We talked about some stick-built product through some quasi-governmental services. We can get sometimes as low as 0.5% down with the first and a second. So, minimizing the down, whereas here they've got 5 to 10% down based upon, things like credit score, DTI, things like that. But these folks, we would put you in touch with them if this is the type of product that you want to look at. So interest rates are typically a little bit higher, Charlie?
Yeah, and that's true due to the product and it being a personal property, not a real property. And that's really the difference between, say, a stick-built home on a piece of land. You get a deed of trust because you're buying the land and the house, and that's considered real property. Where in a mobile, quite often, especially if buying the mobile itself, is typically just considered personal property. Although with modulars and mobiles, and there's these exceptions, if you buy a brand new mobile home and you choose to put it on a foundation, if you take the axles off of it and it's moved there originally onto that foundation, that mobile home or modular on that land can be considered real estate and sold as real property. Once it's been moved there, and the caveat is if it's been moved there and anchored there, and say you buy a modular that's on somebody's property and move it to your property, then it can no longer fall in as real property. It then falls into being personal property. And so there's all these, and again, those things as you go down that road, those are those discussions you have with a buyer, depending on what they're wanting to do, and knowing whether as an agent, those are the things I can discuss with a buyer to help them know whether they want to try to make an offer on something, is whether or not it's been moved or not, those types of things. But yeah, and I don't want to go too deep into that unless there's more questions about it. But
well, I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting. So if a mobile is on its original placement, even if it's years later, you can remove the axle, whatnot, and it can become real property. But if it has been moved, it cannot be.
Correct. Yeah. And typically for that to apply, it has to be purposefully bought, moved, and the axles come off right away. And then you can have because you're going to own, basically you're going to own the land and the property, the personal property, just like a stick-built home on a land. So if you move a mobile onto a lot and put it on a foundation and pull the axles off right away, then you can have a deed of trust. So there's folks that do some of that. That's why we run into them where they actually have a deed, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, I thought this was a mobile home. Well, it was moved there originally, put on a foundation, and once it's on that foundation, depending on this type of foundation, depends on whether or not then FHA will loan against it, just like with any other real property. In Southeast Boise, there's an owned lot mobile home area, and there's quite a few homes that are on foundations, but the FHA won't lend to them based on the changes in FHA, what they require for a foundation. So although they're on a foundation, although they're considered real property, FHA won't lend to them based on the type of foundation they're sitting on. So you have to find conventional lending. So there's, it's one of those that you just got to ask all the right questions.
Yeah, I think the crude way to look at it would be, could it be there today and gone tomorrow? Real property, real estate is, fixed, not going anywhere, stationary, and personal property could be gone. And we should probably have a podcast on that as well, because, things like a refrigerator, that's considered personal property because it's not fixed, it's just plugged into the wall. So you don't necessarily, you can't assume that that's going with the home. You have to either look at the listing and see that the seller's included it as part of the sale, or specifically ask for it. So I think that's a real, kind of crude way to look at it. If that home, it'd be a process to have somebody come out and move a manufactured home. But if it's on wheels, it's got a chassis, you can do it.
Correct.
So, you're going to treat that as if it could be gone tomorrow.
Right. That's a good
a fair way to put it?
Yeah, and you made a good comparison, because you have wall-mounted ovens that stay with a home, where you can have a stove that just plugs in, slides in, that can be removed, would be considered personal property. So using that same mindset with mobiles modulars, I think, is a great way for your typical buyer to be able to imagine, what are my risks? What am I getting myself into? Would it be considered real property? And what's the value of that? And honestly, I don't know that there's a big difference or that there's a serious consideration to whether something's considered personal property or real property. I mean, mobiles and modulars sell in their own market, and their pricing follows that market, just as stick-built homes do. And so, I don't know that, and my point being that, as far as somebody considering whether they're buying real estate or real property or personal property, I haven't had too many buyers being concerned about, oh gosh, it's just going to be personal property. If I'm buying this mobile or this modular, it's going to be considered personal property. I don't think that's a big differentiation for them.
Yeah. Yep. Well, hey guys, we're coming up past the 20-minute mark here, and there's just a ton to cover, but obviously we could be talking about this all day. What I would say is, reach out to us, myhomeconnection.com. The way that our team operates is, if you come in and want to take advantage of the perfect home buying process, we'll identify the best agent, not only for the type of home you're looking for, obviously in the manufactured space. Again, Charlie's our subject matter expert on that, so he can answer other questions that I was hoping we could kind of get to today. Maybe we'll have a follow-up, such as efficiencies of the home, differences, stick-built versus manufactured, resale of the home, things like that. I mean, there's a lot to consider, but I think we've touched on the main ones. Some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the financing pieces, things like that. So, we certainly appreciate your guys' time today, gentlemen, and we'll, based upon the comments or remarks, we'll see if we have a follow-up.
Great. Hey, Jerod, I appreciate you getting this together and letting us chat a little bit about this. Folks do want to reach out. They can reach out through the website, myhomeconnection.com, and just ask for me if they've got questions and they're thinking about it. Just ask. I'd be glad to just visit with you. And then we can make sure we get you to that right person in the team to help you in your home buying purchase.
Yeah, that is a good point. We have a no obligation consultation here, so if you just want some questions specific to your efforts without feeling like you have to do something, that's why we've included that, because we don't want you to hesitate to just reach out and ask. We're giving you a lot of general information, but there might be some specifics to consider for your particular application. So. All right, gentlemen, thanks again for coming on the show. We sincerely appreciate your time, and we look forward to the next one.
Have a great day.
I agree. Have a great day.
All right, everybody. Have a blessed one.
All right.